I stood at the top of my spiral staircase, looking down at my brother Leo's face as his phone clattered onto the marble floor of what was supposed to be his dream home. The sound echoed through the ballroom filled with Atlanta's business elite, and I watched his expression shift from confusion to horror to pure rage. This was the moment. This was the night I showed my family exactly what their worthless daughter had become. But before I tell you how I crushed my brother's dreams and bought the $5.2 million mansion right out from under him, let me take you back to where this all really started. If you're enjoying this story of sweet revenge and want to hear how a woman stood up to her toxic family, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in my situation. Your support means everything. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Now let me rewind to 6 months earlier, to the dinner that changed everything. I arrived at the Sterling mansion 20 minutes late, which was already a crime in my mother's eyes. The moment I stepped through those heavy oak doors, I could feel the judgment hanging in the air like expensive perfume gone sour. My mother, Eleanor Sterling, stood in the foyer with her arms crossed, her pearl necklace catching the light from the crystal chandelier above us. "You're late. Anya? Again, when are you going to learn some discipline?" She didn't even wait for me to remove my coat. She just turned on her heel, her silk dress swishing as she walked back toward the dining room where I could already hear my father's booming voice and Leo's theatrical laughter. "I'm sorry. Mom, traffic on Peachtree was terrible." I wasn't sorry. I had been working late at my warehouse, overseeing a shipment that would change everything. But they would never ask about that. The dining room was a scene straight out of Southern Living magazine. My mother had outdone herself with the table settings, probably because Leo was bringing news of his latest business triumph. I slid into my usual seat, the one closest to the kitchen door, the one that made it easy for me to be forgotten, or to escape when things got too uncomfortable. Leo burst in moments later, all confidence and swagger. My older brother had always been the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. At 32, he carried himself like someone who had never been told no, never been doubted, never been made to feel small. He kissed our mother on the cheek, shook our father's hand with that firm grip that men use when they're trying to prove something, and barely glanced in my direction. "Well, Arthur Sterling," my father leaned forward in his chair, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. "Tell us about the deal." "Son," Leo grinned, that wide smile that had probably closed 1,000 transactions. 3.7 million. Just like that. The investors are practically throwing money at us. Modern Hearth is going to revolutionize the home goods market. We're talking about disrupting the entire industry. My mother clapped her hands together. "That's wonderful. Sweetheart. Your father and I always knew you had it in you." I took a sip of my water, staying quiet. I had learned years ago that dinner conversations in the Sterling household were essentially monologues where Leo performed and our parents applauded. My role was to sit there, not appropriately, and try not to remind everyone that I existed. "And you know what I'm going to do with my bonus," Leo continued, his voice rising with excitement. "I'm putting an offer on that estate in West Paces. 5.2 million. 20,000 square feet. It's got everything. Pool, wine cellar, home theater. It's the kind of house that tells people you've made it." Our father raised his wine glass. "To Leo. To success." They all clinked glasses. No one looked at me. No one asked how my day was. No one seemed to remember that I was even in the room until my father's eyes drifted over to me with that particular expression he reserved for disappointments. "And what about you, Anya? Still playing around with that little website of yours?" The way he said it made my online business sound like a child's lemonade stand. "It's going well, Dad." I kept my voice even, controlled. "We had a really strong quarter." Leo laughed, that condescending sound I had heard my entire life. "Come on, Anya. Let's be real. How much could you possibly be making selling throw pillows and scented candles? It's cute that you have a hobby, but it's not exactly a career." Something hot and sharp twisted in my chest, but I swallowed it down. I had become an expert at swallowing my anger, my hurt, my frustration. I had been doing it for so long that I wasn't sure I even knew how to let it out anymore. "Actually, I started, but my father cut me off. You'll never have a life like Leo's." Anya, that online shop of yours is just a phase. It's time you started thinking seriously about your future. Maybe you should talk to Leo about getting you a real job at one of his companies. Something stable. The words hit me like a slap. After everything I had built, after all the late nights and early mornings, after all the risks I had taken and the victories I had earned, they still saw me as nothing. They still saw my business as a hobby. My success as pretend. Leo leaned back in his chair, swirling his wine. You know, I could probably find you something entry-level. Maybe in customer service or admin support. Nothing too demanding. My mother nodded enthusiastically. That's generous of you. Leo. Anya? You should really consider it. It's time you stopped chasing these silly dreams and did something practical. I sat there, my hands gripping my napkin under the table, my nails digging into my palms. This was my family. These were the people who were supposed to love me, support me, believe in me. Instead, they were offering me scraps from Leo's table and calling it generosity. Actually, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, I'm doing just fine on my own. But thank you for the offer. Leo laughed again. Sure you are. Little sister. Sure you are. I excused myself from dinner early that night, claiming a headache. No one tried to stop me. No one asked if I was okay. I drove straight to my office, a converted warehouse space in West Midtown that I had turned into the headquarters of the Evergreen brand. That's what I had named my company, though my family had never bothered to learn it. Ethan was still there when I arrived, sitting at his desk surrounded by screens, showing our analytics, our inventory, our growth charts that told a very different story than the one my family believed. Rough night. He looked up when he heard my footsteps. Ethan had been my business partner for 3 years, the friend who had believed in me when no one else did, the person who saw my potential when my own family was blind to it. You have no idea. I collapsed into the chair across from him and told him everything. About Leo's bragging, about my father's dismissal, about the offer of an entry-level position like it was charity, about that house in West Paces that Leo wanted so badly. Ethan listened without interrupting, the way he always did. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. And then he said, You know we could buy that house. I looked at him. What? The West Paces estate. We could buy it. Cash. The Evergreen brand pulled in $35 million last year. We have the capital. We have the liquidity. If you wanted to, we could make an offer tomorrow. My heart started beating faster. The idea was crazy. It was petty. It was everything I had been taught not to be. But God, it felt good just to think about it. I want it. I heard myself say, I want that house. And I want to watch Leo's face when he realizes he can't have it. Ethan smiled. That rare full smile that meant he was ready for battle. Then let's make it happen. We worked through the night, setting up an LLC to hide the purchase, contacting the listing agent, preparing the all-cash offer that would blow any other bid out of the water. By sunrise, we had submitted paperwork that would change everything. The next few weeks were a blur of strategic moves and careful planning. I watched from a distance as Leo went to tour the house. As he started talking about interior designers and which rooms would be his office, I watched him post on social media about his upcoming purchase, already counting chickens before they hatched. Our offer was accepted within 48 hours. The sellers loved the simplicity of a cash deal with no contingencies, no inspection period, no financing fall-through risks, just clean money and a quick close. I found out through a mutual friend in real estate that Leo had shown up for a second viewing, only to be told the house was already under contract. According to my source, he had thrown an absolute fit, demanding to know who had dared to outbid him, threatening to use his connections to kill the deal. But there was nothing he could do. The sale was airtight, the buyer anonymous, and by the time anyone figured out what had happened, it would be too late. I decided to throw a housewarming party, not just any party, but an event that would be talked about in Atlanta social circles for years to come. I invited everyone who mattered in the business world, everyone who knew the Sterling name, everyone who had ever underestimated me, and of course, I invited my family. The invitation was beautiful, printed on heavy cardstock with elegant calligraphy. It simply read, You're invited to celebrate a new chapter at the West Paces estate. I didn't sign it with my name, just my initials. My mother called me 2 days after receiving the invitation. Anya, darling, do you know whose party this is? Your father and I received an invitation, and so did Leo. It must be someone quite important if they've invited all of us. I guess you'll have to come and see, I replied, barely containing my smile. The night of the party, I transformed that house into something magical. I hired the best caterers in Atlanta, brought in a string quartet, filled every room with flowers from my own product line, though I made sure the arrangements were displayed without obvious branding. I wanted them to see the quality, to admire the aesthetic, before they knew it came from me. I watched from an upstairs window as guests began to arrive. The who's who of Atlanta streamed through my front door, and I felt a surge of pride so intense it almost brought tears to my eyes. This was mine. I had earned this. Every square foot, every carefully chosen detail, every moment of this night belonged to me. Then I saw my family's car pull up, a sleek black Mercedes that my father loved to show off. I watched them emerge. My mother in her designer dress, my father in his tailored suit, Leo in that cocky stance he always adopted when he was trying to impress someone. They walked into my house like they owned it, which was ironic, considering how things were about to unfold. I watched from the second-floor landing as they mingled with the other guests, as my mother examined the floral arrangements with a critical eye. "Oh, these are lovely," I heard her say to another woman. "They look just like those little things Anya tries to sell on her website." Leo, standing nearby, snorted. "Probably knockoffs. Whoever owns this place has actual taste and money." I felt Ethan's hand on my shoulder. "You ready for this?" I nodded. More than ready. I had spent my entire life being invisible to these people, being dismissed and diminished. Tonight, that ended. I made my entrance from the top of the spiral staircase, the one that curved down into the main ballroom. I had chosen my dress carefully, a deep emerald green that made me feel powerful and untouchable. As I began to descend, conversation quieted. Heads turned, and I felt every eye in the room find me. My mother saw me first. Her face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, more confusion, and finally, a dawning horror. "Good evening, everyone." My voice carried across the space, strong and clear. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight. It means the world to have you here to celebrate this incredible milestone with me." I reached the bottom of the stairs and walked into the center of the room, making sure I was visible to everyone, especially my family. Some of you know me as Anya Sterling. Some of you know me as the founder of the Evergreen brand. For those of you who don't know, I'm the woman who supposedly has a little hobby website selling throw pillows. I let that sink in. Watching faces in the crowd react with recognition, several people smiled. A few laughed quietly. They knew where this was going. I want to especially welcome my family tonight. My parents, Arthur and Eleanor Sterling, and my brother, Leo. They've always been so concerned about my future, about my ability to take care of myself. They've worried that my little online shop couldn't possibly provide a stable life. I turned to face them directly. Leo's face had gone pale. My father looked like he was trying to solve a very difficult math problem. My mother had one hand pressed to her chest. "I'm so glad you're all here tonight to witness what that little hobby has accomplished. Welcome, everyone, to my home. This is the West Paces estate that my brother wanted so badly. The one he was planning to buy with his bonus money. I bought it 6 weeks ago. All cash. Through the Evergreen brand. No mortgage. No financing. Just the profits from those silly throw pillows and scented candles." The sound that came from Leo wasn't quite human. His phone slipped from his hand and hit the marble floor with a crash that echoed through the sudden silence. My mother made a small, gasping sound. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. But I wasn't done. I had years of silence to make up for. Years of being treated like I didn't matter. Like my dreams were worthless. Like my success was impossible. Last year, the Evergreen brand generated $35 million in revenue. We employ 47 people. We have partnerships with major retailers across the country. We're launching an international expansion next quarter. And I did it all while you were too busy celebrating Leo to even ask me how my day was. I walked toward them, my heels clicking on the marble floor. The crowd had gone completely silent. This was better than any reality TV drama. And everyone knew it. Leo, you spent the last 3 months bragging about this house on social media. You told all your friends it was yours. You probably already picked out which room would be your home office. Did you even bother to ask me about my business? Did you ever once show any interest in what I was building? Did any of you? Leo recovered enough to lunge forward. His face twisted with rage. What the hell are you playing at? Anya, where did you really get this money? Who are you sleeping with? There's no way you earned this legitimately. The accusation hung in the air. Ugly and desperate. Ethan stepped forward, ready to intervene. But I held up my hand. I didn't need protecting. Not anymore. You can check the public records. Leo, you can review our SEC filings. You can talk to any of the business journalists in this room who have covered our growth. Or you could do what you should have done years ago and actually listen when I tell you about my life. But you never did. Did you? None of you did. Because you decided a long time ago that I wasn't worth listening to. My mother found her voice, though it came out shaky. Anya, this is inappropriate. This is not how we handle family matters. Family matters, I turned to her, and I felt something break free inside me. Something I had been holding back for decades. Family matters are when you support each other, when you celebrate each other's successes, when you don't openly mock someone's dreams at the dinner table, when you don't offer your own daughter an entry-level position as charity. You stopped treating me like family a long time ago. Mom, tonight, I'm just returning the favor. The party continued. But my family left shortly after my revelation. They walked out with their heads down, Leo practically vibrating with fury. My parents looking shell-shocked and diminished. I watched them go and felt nothing but relief. The rest of the night was a triumph. Business contacts came up to congratulate me, to ask about partnership opportunities, to tell me they had always admired the Evergreen brand. I smiled and networked and played the gracious host, but inside I was still processing what I had just done. After the last guest left, Ethan and I sat on the back terrace, looking out over the pool that glowed blue in the darkness. You okay? He asked. I'm better than okay. For the first time in my life, I feel free. But the story didn't end that night. The confrontation at the party was just the beginning of my family's reckoning with reality. In the weeks that followed, I learned through the grapevine that Leo's business wasn't doing as well as he had claimed. Modern Hearth, the company he had bragged about at that fateful dinner, was struggling. Turns out that investor money he had been so confident about had fallen through, and the $3.7 million deal had never actually closed. I wouldn't have taken any pleasure in his failure if he had been anyone else. But Leo had spent years putting me down, making me feel small, using my supposed inadequacy to boost his own ego. So when Ethan came to me with information about Modern Hearth's troubles, I listened. They're hemorrhaging money, Ethan said, showing me the market research his team had pulled together, and their supply chain is a disaster. They're sourcing from the same manufacturers we dropped 6 months ago because of quality issues. I looked at the data, my mind already working through the implications. Modern Hearth was trying to compete in my space, the home goods market, but they were doing it badly. They had a flashy website and good marketing, but their product was subpar and their logistics were a mess. What are you thinking? Ethan knew me well enough to recognize that look on my face. I'm thinking that we have relationships with every major supplier in the Southeast. I'm thinking that if we expanded our contracts, secured exclusivity with a few key manufacturers, we could effectively cut Modern Hearth off from their supply chain. They'd have to find new vendors, which would take months and cost them a fortune they don't have. That's aggressive, Ethan said. But he was smiling. That's the kind of move that could put them out of business. Is that wrong? I asked. Is it wrong to compete in the marketplace? To use our success and our relationships to grow our business? Not at all. That's just good business. The fact that it happens to destroy your brother's company is just a happy coincidence. We implemented the strategy over the next 2 months. The Evergreen brand signed exclusive contracts with 5 major manufacturers, guaranteeing them higher volume and better payment terms than Modern Hearth could offer. We expanded into product lines that directly competed with their offerings, but with superior quality and faster shipping. I watched from a distance as Modern Hearth began to crumble. They had to delay shipments. Customer complaints piled up. Investors started pulling out, and Leo, who had been so confident just months before, was suddenly scrambling to save his sinking ship. Then I found out something that made the whole situation even more twisted. My parents had invested their retirement savings into Modern Hearth. They had given Leo everything. I bet their future on his success. And now they were watching it all disappear. I should have felt bad about that. They were my parents. After all, but I remembered every dismissive comment. Every time they had chosen Leo over me. Every moment when they had made me feel like I wasn't good enough. And I felt nothing but a cold satisfaction. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. My mother. Her voice desperate in a way I had never heard before. Anya, we need to talk. Can you meet us at your house? It's not really a good time. Mom, I'm in the middle of a product launch. Please. Her voice cracked. It's important. It's about Leo. I agreed to see them. Though I knew exactly what this was about. They were going to ask me for money. For help. For mercy. And I was going to have to decide what kind of person I wanted to be. They arrived at my house that evening. All three of them. Leo looked terrible. The cocky confidence was gone, replaced by a haggard desperation. He couldn't even look me in the eye when he walked through my door. We sat in my living room, in the same space where I had hosted that triumphant party months ago. The irony wasn't lost on any of us. Anya, my father started, his voice formal and stiff. We've come to discuss a family matter. I waited, saying nothing. I had learned the power of silence. Leo's business is in trouble. My mother's hands were shaking as she spoke. He made some investments that didn't pan out. And now the company is facing bankruptcy. Your father and I invested our retirement savings. And we stand to lose everything. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, keeping my voice neutral. But I'm not sure why you're telling me this. Leo finally spoke, the words seeming to cost him physically. I need help. I need capital. I need someone who can help me restructure. And you think that someone is me? You're my sister. He said it like that should mean something. Like that word carried weight. After all these years of being treated like I was invisible, I leaned back in my chair, studying the three of them. They looked broken, defeated. Desperate. Part of me wanted to help them. I wanted to be the bigger person. Wanted to prove that I was better than they were. But another part of me, the part that remembered every cruel word and dismissive gesture, wanted something else entirely. Tell me something. Leo, when you invested in Modern Hearth, when you decided to compete in the home goods market, did you know that was my industry? Did you know you were trying to go up against me? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, quietly, he said, Yes. And you thought you'd win? You thought you'd crush my little hobby business and prove once and for all that you were better than me. He didn't deny it. Here's what I know about Modern Hearth. I pulled out my tablet and showed them the screen. I know that you partnered with them 6 months ago. I know that you convinced Mom and Dad to invest their retirement savings. I know that you bet everything on beating me, on proving that I was nothing. I looked at each of them in turn. And you lost. Not because I sabotaged you. Though I'll admit I didn't make things easy. You lost because your business model was flawed. Your execution was poor. And you were so focused on competing with me that you forgot to actually build something worthwhile. Anya, please. My mother was crying now. We're family. Now we're family. I stood up, unable to sit still anymore. Now, when you need something from me, we're family. Where was that family loyalty when you were mocking my business? Where was it when Leo offered me an entry-level position like it was charity? Where was it every single time you chose him over me? I can't give you what I don't have, my father said quietly. I can't change the past. No, you can't. But you can own it. You can admit that you were wrong about me. Wrong about my business. Wrong about what I was capable of achieving. Leo stood up suddenly, his face flushed with anger. This is bullshit. Anya, you're enjoying this. You're getting off on watching us suffer. You're right, I said simply. I am enjoying this. Because for 29 years, I watched you be celebrated while I was ignored. I watched you fail upward while I had to earn every single inch of ground I gained. I watched our parents give you everything while I had to build something from nothing. So yes, Leo, I'm enjoying seeing you realize that you're not as special as you thought you were. Head took a step toward me, and for a moment I thought he might actually try to hit me. But Ethan appeared in the doorway, and my security guard wasn't far behind. Leo stopped, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Get out of my house, I said quietly. All of you. And don't come back unless you're ready to treat me like an actual human being instead of a bank account or a backup plan. My mother tried to speak, but I held up my hand. I'm done. Mom, I'm done being your disappointment. Your afterthought. Your consolation prize. I built a life without your support. Without your belief. Without your love. And I'm not going to let you back in just because you need something from me now. They left. Leo stormed out without looking back. My parents moved slowly, like they had aged a decade in the span of an hour. I watched them go and felt that same strange emptiness. That hollow victory that tasted both sweet and bitter. The months that followed were transformative. Modern Hearth filed for bankruptcy, and Leo's name was dragged through the business press. It should have felt better than it did. Instead, I felt tired. Tired of the anger. Tired of the revenge. Tired of carrying all this weight. The Evergreen brand continued to grow. We hit $50 million in revenue. We opened a flagship store in Buckhead. I was featured on the cover of Atlanta Business Chronicle as their Businesswoman of the Year. Every marker of success I achieved was another reminder that I had proven them wrong. But it didn't feel like I thought it would. One afternoon, I was sitting in my office when Ethan came in with an interesting proposition. There's a company that's interested in acquiring the Evergreen brand. They're offering $90 million. I looked at him in shock. 90 million. 90 million. You'd retain a significant equity stake and stay on as CEO. But you'd have the capital to really scale. Go national. Maybe even international. It was more money than I had ever imagined having. It was vindication on a level I hadn't even dreamed of. It was proof that my hobby had become an empire. But more than that, it was freedom. Freedom from having to prove anything to anyone. Freedom from the constant need to be better. To achieve more. To show my family what they had underestimated. What do you think I should do? I asked Ethan. He shrugged. I think you should do whatever makes you happy. You've spent your whole life working toward other people's approval. Maybe it's time to figure out what you actually want. That question haunted me for weeks. What did I want? I had achieved everything I set out to do. I had proven my family wrong. I had built an empire from nothing. I had bought the house my brother wanted and thrown a party that would be talked about for years. But was I happy? I started seeing a therapist. Something I probably should have done years ago. Doctor. Martinez was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who didn't let me get away with anything. You've been running on revenge and validation for years. She told me in one of our early sessions. Those are powerful fuels. But they're not sustainable. Eventually, you have to figure out what you're running toward, instead of what you're running from. I don't know how to do that. I admitted. Then that's what we'll work on. It was hard work. Harder than building a business, or buying a mansion, or destroying my brother's company. It meant looking at the parts of myself I had buried. The hurt child who just wanted to be seen. The angry teenager who learned to swallow her pain. The young woman who had built walls so high that no one could touch her. My mother called again about 3 months after that disastrous meeting at my house. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Anya, she said. And her voice was different. Smaller. Humbler. I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About the way we treated you. And you were right. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm not calling to ask you for anything, she continued. I'm calling to apologize. For all of it. For every time we dismissed you. Every time we chose Leo over you. Every time we made you feel like you weren't enough. You deserved better from us. You deserved better from me. I felt tears stinging my eyes. Which surprised me. I thought I was past crying about this. Thank you. I managed to say, that means a lot. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything from you at all. I just wanted you to know that I see you now. I see what you've built. Who you've become. And I'm proud of you. Even though I have no right to be. We talked for an hour. Really talked. For maybe the first time in my life, she told me about her regrets, about the way she had been raised to favor sons over daughters, about how she had perpetuated a cycle of harm without even realizing it. She told me about Leo's depression, about my father's shame, about the way their whole world had shifted. I didn't forgive her. Not right away. Forgiveness isn't something you can hand out like a business card. But I listened. And that was something. In the end, I didn't take the $90 million offer. I restructured the Evergreen brand into something that felt more authentic, more aligned with what I actually wanted to create. I scaled back on some of the aggressive expansion, focused on quality over growth. I hired people who shared my vision rather than just my ambition. And slowly, very slowly, I started to let my guard down. I went on dates. I made friends who knew me as Anya, not as the businesswoman of the year or the woman who bought her brother's dream house. I took up painting, which I had loved as a kid, but had abandoned because it wasn't practical or profitable. My relationship with my family is complicated now. My mother and I have coffee once a month. It's awkward and sometimes painful, but it's real, in a way our relationship never was before. My father sent me a letter apologizing, which I read and reread until I had memorized every word. I haven't responded yet, but I might someday. Leo and I haven't spoken since that day in my living room. I heard he took a job at a marketing firm, started over at a much lower level than he had been before. Part of me feels bad about that. Part of me thinks he needed the humility. Mostly, I try not to think about him at all. I still live in the West Paces house, though I've made it my own. I replaced a lot of the furniture, added artwork that I actually like, instead of what I thought would impress people, turned one of the bedrooms into a painting studio. It's not a trophy anymore. It's just my home. Ethan and I are still business partners, though there have been moments lately where I've wondered if we might be something more. He was there through everything, never judging, always supporting, seeing me even when I couldn't see myself. But I'm not ready for that yet. I'm still learning how to be alone without being lonely, how to be successful without being driven by spite, how to be happy without needing external validation. Dr. Martinez asked me recently if I regretted any of it. The revenge, the party, the way I had crushed my brother's business. No, I told her honestly. I needed to do that. I needed to prove to myself that I was capable, that I was valuable, that I mattered. I needed to show them that they were wrong about me. And now I need to prove it to myself for different reasons. Not because I'm angry or hurt or desperate for approval, but because I actually believe it. Looking back, I realized that the night of the housewarming party wasn't the victory I thought it was. The real victory came months later, when I stopped needing my family to acknowledge my worth because I already knew it myself. When I could look at my success and feel proud without needing their shame to validate me. When I could stand in my beautiful house and feel at peace instead of triumphant. The Evergreen brand is still growing, still thriving, still proving every day that I was never the failure my family thought I was. But now it's more than that. It's a legacy I'm building on my own terms, with my own values, for my own reasons. I learned that freedom isn't about buying a bigger house than your brother or making more money than your parents thought possible. Freedom is about not needing their approval anymore. It's about building a life that makes you happy, even if no one else understands it. It's about knowing your own worth, even when the people who should have taught you that were too blind to see it. My name is Anya Sterling, and I am not defined by my family's expectations or their limitations. I am not the daughter who was never good enough, or the sister who was always second best. I am a businesswoman, an artist, a friend, a work in progress. I am someone who learned to save herself when no one else would, and that, more than any mansion or magazine cover or dollar amount, is worth celebrating, sometimes late at night. I stand on my terrace and look out over the city lights of Atlanta. I think about that girl who sat at dinner tables feeling invisible, who absorbed every cruel comment and dismissive gesture, who learned to make herself small so others could feel big. I think about how far she's come, how much she's overcome, how strong she had to become, and I tell her, we did it. We're free. We're finally free. That freedom, I've learned, isn't about revenge, or success, or proving people wrong. It's about waking up every morning and choosing to build the life you want instead of trying to live up to someone else's expectations. It's about setting boundaries and keeping them. It's about knowing that you are enough, exactly as you are, regardless of what anyone else thinks. It's about learning that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's living well, authentically, and on your own terms. Was I wrong to enjoy watching my brother fail? Maybe, was I petty for buying that house just to prove a point? Probably. But was I justified in standing up for myself, in refusing to accept their toxic treatment anymore? In building a life that proved my worth? Absolutely, because at the end of the day, you teach people how to treat you. And I was done being treated like I didn't matter. I was done being the afterthought, the backup plan, the daughter who would never measure up. I was done sacrificing my dreams to make other people comfortable. I chose myself. And that choice changed everything. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to cut ties with toxic family members? Have you ever had to prove your worth to people who doubted you? What would you have done in my situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that you're stronger than you think and capable of more than others believe, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of resilience, revenge, and redemption. Your support means everything. Remember, you are not defined by other people's limitations. You are not obligated to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You are allowed to take up space, to demand respect, to build the life you deserve. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give yourself is the freedom to walk away from people who refuse to see your value. Even if those people are family, especially if those people are family.